Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's Melva and the gang from the International Parenting Summer Series. I have Alex, Rennie, Crystal, Danny, Megan, Mary, Melissa, and Linda. I'm super happy that you ladies are here with me. I'm super happy that we are part of the International Parenting Summit Series, and this month's topic is Parents Are Better at Helping Children Handle Frustration. I know most of us are moms as well, and big emotions are something that happen daily, if we like it or not. They're either our own, people that we get in contact with, or our kids. And if we have multiple kids, sometimes the emotions just kind of feed off each other, especially if they're negative ones. So, my question to you, what's your number one tip for parents to help lower down the emotions when we see that the emotions are bottling up and they're not very positive? Crystal, I'll ask you to take
Sure.
it over.
Okay, so this is something that's super common with all of us moms. And there's a lot that I could say, but the one thing I think I will say first is that it's really common for our brains to mirror emotion. So when we go see our child and our child's having a meltdown, it's pretty common for us just to have a meltdown back at them, to yell, to get frustrated, to get anxious, all of those things. And so what I try to do is get really conscious of what's going on in my own body at that time. Like, what am I feeling? Why am I so uncomfortable with their discomfort here? What's going on here? And I use what's called the zones. So it's like red zone, yellow zone, green zone, kind of like red light, yellow light, green light. And I can tell where I'm at and be mindful of, okay, what does green look like for me? What is yellow? What is red? And find things that help me to calm down and get back down into my green zone and process that feeling. Because when I'm in green, then I'm going to, when our emotions are high, our logic is low, right? So I'm not going to, my best parenting tools aren't going to come from me in my red zone. So getting calmed back down again, and being able to handle that situation with a little bit more ease.
Right. That's very true, Crystal. Thank you. And now, when we think about children, and their emotions, and when we enter a child's room and everyone's fighting or screaming, we can understand why we have big emotions. Linda, I'll ask you
Mhm.
this question because you work with itty bitty tiny babies. And sometimes in the media, we hear that parents even lose frustration with tiny babies who aren't fighting, who aren't screaming because they had a fight with their brother and sister. So, how can parents handle that kind of a big emotion that is associated with infants?
Yes, it's a very common situation where we find mums with new babies and even dads for the first time are releasing these feelings that they don't understand why that's happening. And there's a connection with their own parenting from the past and also even past lives that come through. And it puts us in positions that it can be quite frightening for a lot of parents, because no parent wants to harm their child and their babies particularly. So being definitely being present with the somatic feeling, that sort of feeling wherever it is in the body, whether it's in your chest or your head or shoulders or tummy, to sit with that, be able to just notice it and know that you are safe. It's just past experiences coming back that are triggered from this current moment. So just sitting with it is the first start to becoming calmer and noticing it, and then breathing through it, doing lots of activities that you can. And that will start to allow you to know that you can come out the other end and be calmer when you're about to engage with your infant. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Linda. Melissa, I'll take this question to you if you may. I have a question for you about bigger families. You say that you are a mom of 6 and you help with adoptive families. And a lot of the adoptive families that I have personally know, they have multiple kids. So what happens when there are multiple kids with their big emotions? How can we as parents, what's your number one tip, kind of make this manageable?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I agree with, what some other folks have already said in terms of, mirror neurons, that our nervous systems are communicating a lot of unspoken messages back and forth. I think the other thing to remember is that because of that mirroring, nervous systems need, in order to co-regulate, they need something that's kind of close by in terms of energy level to do that with. And so, I think we often think of calm and control almost synonymously, but remember that within those regulation zones, if we think of them rather than being in or out of control, but as different energy levels, and we can be in or out of control in any of the energy levels, then that can be really helpful, because sometimes calm isn't what is called for in the situation. We always need to be in control, but we can use being in control of our nervous system to kind of modify our energy level. And sometimes that is the key to kind of harnessing all of that energy and helping everyone regulate, not necessarily calm down, but be in control. And of course, once we're in control, then we can all together, manage that energy level to whatever is appropriate for the situation. Because, sometimes it's okay to have a high energy level as long as we're in control of it.
Right. Thank you, Melissa. Alex, I have a question to you. I know that during the summit that's coming up, you're the one that showed us hand signals that we can use with our kids. Can you tell me a little bit why you think that connecting hand signals as well as words spoken and the message of understanding what love and observation is a good idea to connect together when it comes to communicating with our kids?
Oh, I love the question. It's because we see, kids first see, actually before they see, they feel the energy that it is inside. So that's why what Crystal and Linda and Melissa were telling, about to calm yourself. That's why we first have to calm ourselves. And in that moment, if we start to remember remember ourselves, and then also to teach kids, it's easier to show them. And when you have a sign, it's all for listening. And if you give just this sign, instead of yelling, instead of, what everything can happen, if you just show that to a kid, you then to start, rewire their brain so that they know it's just, oh, I have to listen. They calm down, and you can help yourself. It's just when you show V or you show O, it's just a little bit of funny, but still it's an I. And, a child can then think, pause, and I have to observe. So they start to connect the signs, the words, and everything, what it means. And it's also an interesting way how you can calm and teach a child something new, instead always of talking, and the stories and everything what we do is okay. But sometimes, to take some different roads, it's also good to use.
Right. Thank you, Alex, so very much. I'll go back and stay with the body, but I'll go back to Mary. Mary, if I can ask you, we talked about grounding techniques and you said using the tree pose. So again, using our body to calm down was one of the tips that you are going to give in the summit. Can you tell me a little bit about why tapping into our body is also important when it comes to co-regulating our emotional level?
I think that our body, when we can connect physically, then it allows us to come to the present moment. And that can be so powerful because it's like an oasis. Because a lot of times our frustration is about something that happened in the past, or it's something that we're worried about in the future. And when we can come to present, then it's an oasis from that. And it's just so interesting. I was just doing yoga yesterday, and the teacher had told us that we were in the child's pose, and she said, try to feel the ground holding you up at every contact point and settle into the ground to feel that. And it was interesting because if you're familiar with child's pose, often it involves, kneeling down, bending forward, stretching your arms outward. And I found that in order to really let my body settle into the ground, my arms, I had to stop reaching so hard. And I think that also, we can learn things that are metaphorical as we move our body. So it was like a little lesson for me, like, okay, stop reaching so hard and settle and let the ground hold you up. And so I think there's so much power, kind of like what Alex was talking about with going into a different modality than just words, logic, reason, bringing our body in can be just a very powerful, powerful grounding technique, because the earth is there holding us.
Right. Sometimes parents with frustration, and especially, well, my little girl was a good example at 2.5. She kind of showed her frustration by slamming the door. So instead of body, she used other objects and tools. Children sometimes do that, and we had to work through that. So, Rennie, heading over to you, tell me a little bit. You also work with teens, and you yourself now have adult children. When our teens show frustration, like my 2.5-year-old at the time, slamming doors and I hate yous and all those things, what parenting tip would you give parents to help calm that frustration and negative emotions? We can't hear you, Rennie.
Thanks. My number one tip is don't take it personally. And I know that's easier said than done, but the thing with this is it's our job to teach our children to solve these problems for themselves. And so much of their childhood up to that point has been, oh, mom will fix it for you, dad will fix it for you. And we develop this mindset that it is our job to solve their problems. It's our job to fix things. It's our job to cater to them and get them the food when they need it. It's kind of ingrained in our lives at that point. But the truth is that one day our children are going to have to go off on their own, and they're going to need to have problem solving skills. They can't blame mom and dad forever for not making everything happen for them. So one of the greatest tools that I use to teach this is I empathize with them in the moment when they're, oh, why can't you fix this for me? Why can't you, complaining, whatever it is that they're, ranting about that particular day. It's, oh man, I know, I hate it when I mess up too. I know, I don't like chores either, but man, we got to do them. It's just that empathizing. It makes them know you're on their team. So it immediately keeps you, I'm fine. I don't have any problems. This is your problem to deal with. How are you going to solve it? And it gives you that safe distance away from taking it personally. It's not your job necessarily to solve all of their problems. It's your job to help them learn how to solve their own problems. And so this not taking it personally, this empathizing with them, is a great way to keep yourself reminded of that. And hey, this isn't me. I know you're going through something right now. I'm here for you, man. I got your back. But you got to figure this out. What can we do to help you out with figuring this out? And sometimes it's completely irrational, the stuff that they're dealing with, the stuff that they're going through. They don't know half of why they do half of what they do, all the time. It's just the hormones and the chemicals, and they're exploring their limits and testing boundaries. And all we can do is just be there for them and be that solid place they can come for some sage advice from time to time.
Well, testing also means testing our patience. So Megan,
Absolutely.
My question to you, when we are lacking of, or there's a shortage of our own parental patience, what is your advice that you can give to parents when it comes to keeping a calm relationship at home?
Well, there's so many things we can do, and there's been some amazing advice already. One thing I like to remind parents is you really need to take care of you first so that you can then help your kids. So often we all of a sudden, like everyone said, we're panicking because they're freaking out, and we need to work on just even that microsecond when you realize this isn't an emergency and you can take care of yourself, either being proactive and checking in on yourself throughout the day, or in that moment, recognizing that you need to take care of yourself first so that you can be that calm in the storm. I really like fast, easy things that my brain can remember. So I like, stop, and it's stop, take a breath, observe what's going on, and then make a plan to proceed. And just even telling myself the words, the more I practice it, it's one of those things that all these techniques we're trying to teach our children, they work for us.
Yes.
And we need to be practicing them too, just as much as our kids.
Yeah, I'm a kid too, a 40-year-old kid, but still a kid. So you're right. They work for me as well. Danny, is there anything that you would add on to one of your favorite tips and tricks that you can use to help bring back the emotional balance within the family environment?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I really love all of the different tools that everyone has shared so far. And I think, people will pick up on what's going to work for them, like the hand signals or you have the red light, green light, or the grounding and the poses. And so what my work is with families is really helping them to take it kind of one step back. And I think Linda mentioned this, building a coherent narrative of their parenting past. So how they were parented and even beyond, maybe, how their grandparents parented their parents, and really taking an honest look at that and seeing what is within us, what are we capable of, what have we experienced, really just making sense of that from a cognitive space. We can actually start to clear these generational cycles that are dysfunctional parenting patterns in our past. And then once we've done that, then we have access to all of these beautiful tools that you guys are sharing. So then we can pick and choose, this is going to work for us or this or that. But it's so hard to really will yourself out of these ingrained patterns that are deep within you. It's really hard to just, force yourself out of will to do it without kind of taking a step back and kind of clearing the path to go forward with intention and consciousness, and really deciding the parent that you want to be at this time. So I love everything everyone shared, and that's what I would add. So thank you.
Awesome. You know what? Parenting is not easy. We are parents as well. And we have all the theories theoretically, but yet we sometimes still use our patience. Okay, I'm going to speak about myself. I sometimes use my patience, and I know that people around me sometimes lose their patience too. I will ask whoever wants to take this topic. Tell me, once we lose our patience, what's the first step that we can do to help rebuild the relationship, rebuild the connection, and rebuild the positive atmosphere once that patience just kind of exploded and our emotions were big?
I can speak to that. I think that the most important thing there is to apologize, right? Repairing that, which is like the first step to reconnecting, and then find something to reconnect. So even when my daughter kind of separates and has her own tantrum, even if I don't lose it, I'm like, okay, how can we reconnect here? And so if I have done something, just apologizing. And I actually think that it's amazing when we mess up and we yell and we're impatient and we do all of those human things that we do, because if we were perfect all the time, they would grow up with this completely idealistic and impossible idea of what, being mothers or being parents should be. And then they would just feel shame all the time and then be parenting from that space. So I think it's great when we aren't the perfect parent, when we aren't the best parent, and don't use our tools so that we can show them how they can then respond to failure and mistakes. I think it's gold when we do that. I'm like, okay, good. Awesome. I made a mistake. Let's go fix this, and show them through my modeling that behavior, what I can do.
Very, very true. Danny just mentioned, so sorry, Melissa, would you like to say something on that as well?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say 100%. I actually tell parents, like, the failure isn't losing our patience, right? The failure is if we don't reconnect. And one of my favorite other parenting experts to follow is Robin Goebel, and she says we really just need to get it right a third of the time, which I think is so freeing. And she talks about we'll probably mess up a third of the time, and then that final third we spend repairing the third that we messed up. And so that has helped a lot of the parents I work with, like, feel this sense of, I don't have, everyone's like, oh, I can do 30% and then repair what I mess up. So.
Right. I'm very glad that you said that, and all of you experts have said that as well, that, you know what, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be calm. We don't have to be zen all the time. I like my big emotions. I like being happy. I like jumping up and down on the trampoline with my kids and giggling, which also means sometimes I get angry, because that is just a part of the emotions. So for me, it's very important to understand and to take into account what Crystal and Melissa had just mentioned, that once we lose our patience, we here as experts are telling you parents that it's okay. 1/3 we can handle, not losing it 1/3 or kind of doing it the right way. But again, there are also ways of rebonding here in the summit. If you listen, you're I think that you will be more than willing to come out of this summit with a whole notebook of notes. Ladies, thank you so very much for being part of this panel. Thank you very much for being part of this summit. I can't wait for every parent and caregiver to listen to to your speeches and or your workshops. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Malva.